When peace feels unfamiliar, restoration begins here. This is P.I.P.E Podcast. Welcome to P.I.P Podcast. I'm Kezia, and I'm really glad you're here. Lately, I've been thinking about something that feels really hard to admit. I think there are seasons of my life where chaos felt more familiar to me than peace ever did. And that sounds strange because all I've ever said was, I just want peace. I prayed for peace. I begged God for peace. I cried so many nights asking for peace. But when you spend enough years emotionally overwhelmed and surviving and walking on eggshells, anticipating disappointment, trying to manage conflict, your nervous system adapts to chaos. So when life gets quiet, sometimes your body doesn't know what to do with it. Sometimes peace doesn't feel peaceful at all at first. Sometimes it just feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar can feel unsafe. I think survival mode changes you in ways you don't even realize while you're living in it. You adapt, you become hyper-aware, hyper-responsible, hyper-vigilant, hyper-independent emotionally, and you start monitoring everything constantly. Tone shifts and silence, energy changes, facial expressions, those delayed texts. And after a while, you stop realizing that you're even doing it. Your body just stays braced, always preparing emotionally for impact. And there were days when I was in Texas where I would drop my kids off at school, where I would just sit at the hospital parking lots. Sometimes I just sat there trying to breathe. Sometimes I genuinely thought about walking through those hospital doors and admitting myself because emotionally, I truly didn't know if I could do it anymore. And I remember feeling crazy sometimes, not dramatic, not attention-seeking, just emotionally exhausted in a way I didn't know how to fix it. Part of me wanted someone to finally look at me and say, "This is serious. You are not okay, and what you're carrying is too heavy." But every afternoon around 3:00, I'd wipe my tears away, wake myself up from whatever emotional spiral I was sitting in, and I would become mom again. I would show up again. I would smile again, drive again, function again. And God, that kind of emotional survival is unbelievably draining. And I also need to be honest about something else. Sometimes I was the one restarting the chaos. I can't even tell you how many times peace was actually there. Nothing was wrong. Everything was calm. Everything was okay and everyone was okay. And then suddenly, I'd notice a facial expression, a tone change, silence, distance, a response that didn't feel the way I needed it to feel. And internally, I could feel the chaos start swirling. Fear, overthinking, panic, defensiveness, hurt, and rejection. And sometimes I lit my own fires emotionally not because I wanted destruction, but because part of me had become so used to emotional instability that the calm almost felt unsafe. And I hated that part about myself because it exhausted me too. The highs and the lows are consuming. Eventually, the storm would pass, and there would be apologies, connection again, and calm again, until something triggered the fear again, and the cycle restarted. I think one of the hardest things about survival mode is admitting that sometimes you become so afraid of pain and rejection or abandonment that you actually help create the very chaos that you're trying to avoid. And another painful realization for me was this. I was trying so hard to hold everything together that I was actually breaking things apart by holding on too tightly. I wanted certainty and reassurance and safety and control over the outcome. And the more afraid I became of losing things, the tighter I squeezed. But fear, disguised as control, still creates damage. And honestly, I parented so often from fear. I think when your nervous system has lived in survival mode for so long, you start trying to protect your children from every possible pain. You over-monitor, overthink, over-carry emotionally, over-explain, or over-discipline. You just overdo. One of my daughters has this phrase she says to me sometimes. She laughs when she says it. Mom, chill on me. Just chill on me. And honestly, she says it because she feels me overdoing it emotionally. And while it comes from love, fear still transfers. There were moments I was physically present, but emotionally anxious all of the time, trying to make sure everybody was okay and trying to prevent hurt before it happened, trying to control outcomes so nobody felt what I felt. But healing is teaching me something more important. My children do not need a perfect mother. They needed a present one. And honestly, that realization has been both heartbreaking and freeing. And it was in that struggle that I realized I needed a different foundation. Because fear had become such a normal part of how I operated emotionally that I honestly thought it was protecting me. But it wasn't protecting me. It was only exhausting me. There's another layer to all of this that I've been thinking about lately too, especially growing up in Christian circles. For a long time, I thought some of what I experienced was spiritual discernment or prophetic sensitivity, or just being deeply aware spiritually. And maybe part of it was. I do believe God gives people gifts. But I also think sometimes what I called discernment was actually hypervigilance. I learned very young how to read people, their expressions, energy shifts, their body language, their tone, patterns. I could sense tension so quickly, and I noticed things other people would miss. And yes, sometimes that awareness helped people. And sometimes I gave meaningful encouragement because of it. But constantly reading everything and feeling everything and analyzing everything is exhausting. And healing has looked like learning that I don't have to interpret every silence anymore. I don't have to search every facial expression for hidden meaning. And I don't have to emotionally monitor every single room I walk in. Because not every feeling is prophecy, and not every anxiety is discernment, and not every fear is wisdom. Sometimes your nervous system is just tired. And honestly, there's a verse that keeps coming back to me, and lately, it just goes over and over in my head. I hear, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And for years, fear convinced me it was protecting me. But it was not protecting me. It was exhausting me. Fear made me overanalyze and overreact and overprepare emotionally. And healing has looked like slowly learning what a sound mind could actually feel like. Not panic, not chaos, not spiraling emotionally every time something feels uncertain, but steadiness. And breathing again, and trusting again, and resting again. And honestly, I think about this vision I had years ago sometimes. I saw this campfire, and Jesus was sitting there with people surrounding the fire. People society would reject, the broken people, addicts, prostitutes, people carrying shame. And at first, I think part of me viewed myself differently from them. But then Jesus looked at me. And in that moment, I realized something so deeply. I needed him just as much as they did. I needed his protection, his covering, his forgiveness, his worth, and most importantly, his salvation. And I think it was one of the first moments I truly understood grace. Because survival mode can make you believe you have to save yourself emotionally, to control yourself, protect yourself, manage everything yourself. But healing is teaching me that peace doesn't come from controlling everything. Peace comes from finally feeling safe enough to surrender. I think some of us become so used to surviving emotionally that we confuse intensity with love, chaos with passion, and instability with connection. But healing sometimes looks like teaching yourself that calm is not emptiness. Peace is not a punishment. Stable love may feel quieter, but quieter doesn't mean it's less real. Maybe healing starts when we stop glorifying survival and finally start learning how to live again. And next episode, I want to talk about something that honestly changed my life once I finally admitted it. Because eventually, pain stops becoming something you experience and starts becoming who you believe you are. You stop saying, I'm hurting, and you start living like, this is just me now. And when pain becomes your identity, you protect it, you will defend it, and you will build your life around it. You don't even realize how much of yourself has been shaped by survival, fear, rejection, shame, and grief, until one day you look in the mirror and wonder, who would I even be without all of this? And honestly, that question terrified me. Because healing doesn't just require letting go of pain. Sometimes it requires letting go of the identity you have built around it too. And the next episode, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. This is P.I.P.E, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for sitting with us today, where restoration begins.